The Chicago Bears need a new offensive coordinator. On today's episode, I want to talk about the 5 best candidates to replace Declan Doyle as the OC for the Chicago Bears. Also, Nahshon Wright gets a $16 million per year evaluation, and he's projected to return to the Chicago Bears. I'm going to talk about why I don't think that's going to happen, and 2 defensive-focused prospects in the NFL draft that the Bears should zero in on. We'll talk about all that and more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And I want to discuss the candidates that could replace Declan Doyle as the Chicago Bears offensive coordinator. Have a mix of inside promotions here that are coming internally from the Chicago Bears and outside the options. We're going to start off with the internal options. Number one, Antwaan Randle, right? Of course, there are a nice number of in-house options that the Chicago Bears can go to. And I think when you look at it, wide receivers coach and assistant head coach Antwaan Randle is probably the most natural guy to take over that OC role, right? You look at the impact that he's had on the season for the Chicago Bears. It's been there. He served as a receiver coach the last 5 years. The first 4 seasons being with the Detroit Lions alongside Ben Johnson. There's a familiarity there. There's a shorthand there. And I think if Antwaan Randle is going to take an offensive coordinator position, it's going to be under Ben Johnson, and it makes sense. If he has aspirations to eventually be a head coach, being under Ben Johnson, taking the promotion from assistant head coach and wide receivers coach to offensive coordinator, I think that he can learn from Ben Johnson even more than what he's already done, and he makes a natural progression there for the Chicago Bears to take on that position. I think that makes a lot of sense. But there's also another internal option as well that may be a little bit more under the radar, and that's JT Barrett, right? Of course, an in-house option. It makes sense. I have talked about before wanting to see the Chicago Bears finally be a team that starts building things in-house, right? We haven't really done that a lot over the recent history of the Chicago Bears because we just haven't had good coaching staff. I mean, did you really want to promote anybody from Matt Eberflus's coaching staff? But if we're doing it the right way here, right, and we're starting to build a legacy here, and I know we're only 1 year in, it's very early to start talking about that, but JT Barrett not only has a familiarity, he's the quarterback's coach. He worked with Caleb Williams last season. It was notable to have done that. He's been with Ben Johnson as well for 4 years, going back to the Detroit Lions, so that makes a sense there as well. And he's probably somebody who knows the offense and what's needed to make this offense successful the most other than Ben Johnson. So it will be there. It's a smooth transition. It's not really a big transition to where shorthand or the communication needs to change. It's the same face that's already been here. He's been here with Caleb Williams. He understands how to make that work, how to make that go. He's worked hand in hand with Caleb now for over a year. So that's going to be important, especially as the OC that is going to have some playmaking duties, but also he's going to be strategizing. He's going to help with those things, help with the game plan. Having somebody that's already has Caleb Williams' ear and that Caleb is familiar with goes a long way in getting that done. So, I like it as well. We know that Ben Johnson it seemed like what he was trying to do with Declan Doyle was turn a young unknown into the next, offensive coordinator, and that's basically what he did. Declan Doyle flourished in that. He now has a job where he's actually going to get to call plays, and so I do think that JT Barrett could have a similar trajectory as well, and so another in-house option for the Chicago Bears also when it comes down to it. But let's get to the guys that we don't know, right? As far as here in Chicago, but I am going to go to a guy that has a lot of history with Ben Johnson, and that's Tanner Engstrand. And this is a guy that, of course, you look at it, he's a guy that has a relationship with Ben Johnson. He recently got fired from the New York Jets, but he spent 5 years with the Detroit Lions alongside Ben Johnson, where he was the passing game coordinator for 3 of those years when it came down to that. When the Lions defense coordinator Aaron Glenn was hired as the Jets head coach, he followed him to New York. Makes some sense there, the same way that their coaches followed Ben Johnson to Chicago, but he was fired after 1 season. So this would be a guy that, he didn't have a lot to work with there, in New York there. He has more weapons here. He can go back to working with the guy that he is familiar with, that he worked in another stop with. I think that's a good thing. He would be a really nice addition to Ben Johnson's staff. And like I said, sometimes you want faces from the or eyes from the outside coming in. Of course, I'm all for promoting internally for the Chicago Bears, but I do think that he can use this job as a launching pad, a more natural launching pad, much like Declan Doyle did as well, but take some years to learn, have some stability here because, again, the familiarity with Ben Johnson. He's probably the guy that may be the most obvious choice if we're going to hire from the outside and bring somebody in. It's probably Tanner Engstrand. It's probably the guy that's probably is going to be the most obvious outside guy in, whereas Antwaan Randle or JT Barrett may be the most obvious guys internally, right? The next guy I want to bring up is Hank Fraley, right? Again, much like with Declan Doyle, a guy that wouldn't have the play calling duties, but we have seen how that can be alluring to other coaches and can help other coaches. This is an opportunity for Hank Fraley as well to come in, right? Maybe call some plays for the Chicago Bears. He does have ties with Ben Johnson back to the Lions as well. He served as the offensive line coach, which I know we have a damn good offensive line coach here as well, but if anybody wants to use this job to potentially learn more and do more, Hank Fraley could definitely do that as well. People believe that, hey, he was going to come with Ben Johnson to Chicago anyway. He ended up remaining in Detroit. So now, as far as that, it would have been a lateral move. Reportedly, we're looking at him to be the offensive line coach. But now, an offensive coordinator role could be something that entices him a little bit more to come to the Chicago Bears and actually be that offensive coordinator under Ben Johnson. Best believe Ben Johnson's going to have whoever he wants as the offensive coordinator. People have seen what Ben Johnson has done in year one with the Chicago Bears, but also just the reputation that he carries with the Bears as well. So it's going to be a lot of people that are very interested in what the Chicago Bears job could look like and could do for their careers. And I do think Hank Fraley makes a lot of sense for the Chicago Bears in that sense as well. Now, the guy that's probably the most long shot here of anyone is Davis Webb, right? This is a guy that's interviewed for a lot of head coaching and offensive coordinator positions already this offseason. So it's clear that he's in high regard around the NFL, right? He's currently the Denver Broncos quarterbacks coach and pass game coordinator, but with them firing their offensive coordinator, Webb is also a top candidate to potentially replace him. He's 31 years old, so very young as far as in coaching as well. And so it's more of a long shot if that were going to happen because it seems like he already has a more natural progression where he already is to stay there and to gain some familiarity. But I do think this, an opportunity to work with Ben Johnson, to work with Caleb Williams, to be part of maybe the Bears taking another step forward offensively this season. Davis Webb may be enticed by that to come to the Chicago Bears if they make him the offer. This is probably the most long shot out of all of them. The guy that I think is the most, so as far as like the most safe bets, right? I think Antwaan Randle internally is probably the most safe bet. JT Barrett not far behind him. And then I would say Tanner Engstrand is probably the most likely an obvious candidate from coming externally into the Chicago Bears. But I think all these guys bring something different to the Chicago Bears. And while Declan Doyle did not call a lot of plays, he did call some plays. There were some plays where Declan Doyle did call, right? I think working closely with Ben Johnson, working with Caleb Williams, working with what was the third best offense in the league last year per statistics, there are going to be a lot of guys that look at this job as the next stepping stone. Now, of course, Ben Johnson's probably going to want somebody who wants to stay around for years. That doesn't mean that they necessarily will, but I don't know if Ben Johnson's going to hire somebody that then you got to turn around and do this again next year, which could go to some of those other guys and why they may not get the job. Internally is probably going to be the most likely thing, but we'll see what Ben Johnson does with it. Let me know what you guys think down below on any of these guys. Do you think these guys make sense for the Chicago Bears? Do you think some other guys that I did not mention makes more sense for the Chicago Bears? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. With that said, a player that's been talked about a lot, rightfully so because of the season he had, was Nahshon Wright. And while the Bears have defensive line issues that they need to focus more so on, they do have some questions that they need to answer in the secondary, namely because Terrell Smith didn't play any last season. Tyreek Stevenson, could he end up being cut? Those type of things. You have Zay Frazier, a young guy in the wings. Also, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, a veteran that you signed that ended up playing pretty well for you. But Nahshon Wright, who was a Pro Bowler this year, has been predicted by CBS Sports' Zachary Perelis to re-sign with the Chicago Bears, saying this. Wright was one of the most surprising breakouts of the 2025 season. After 1 interception in 4 seasons, he had 5 in his only campaign with the Bears and added 2 forced fumbles and 3 fumble recoveries. Now, that's great. Being predicted to return to the Chicago Bears is great, but we got to talk about the reality of him returning to the coming back to the Chicago Bears. And I think the interesting thing to look at and the thing that matters the most in this conversation is, what does the money look like? Well, if we're going to go to that, Spotrac, Spot Rack, however you guys pronounce it, predicted that Nahshon Wright would get an annual projected salary of $16.6 million, right? And when you consider in the fact that Nahshon Wright, who hasn't really had long-term stability in his NFL career, is probably going to be searching for that, he's probably going to want a 3 or 4 year contract, which means that you're probably looking at a contract of the value of about $50 million, right? Now, the Bears could go the franchise tag, right, as well. But then when you look at the franchise tag, which brings, it combines the top salaries of the average between the top salaries of cornerback, that franchise tag will be $21.4 million, right? So you're probably, if Spotrac's right in the projection of what he's probably going to be looking for, you're cheaper to just sign him outright. The question is the longevity of it. Now, me and Bobby, Steve-O, we talked about it before, C-Dub as well. I do not expect Nahshon Wright back in the Chicago Bears uniform. I just think the price tag is going to be way too high. Tom Brady even recently talked about it. For a guy that led the league in what he did last season and how he played, he's going to get paid. There's going to be somebody that wants to take a shot on him. And, there were issues in coverage with Nahshon Wright that you just can't overlook. Also, if a guy like Zay Frazier, your rookie, right, he's going to be a second-year guy now, if he comes back and is healthy, and even if he's not necessarily the ball hawk that Nahshon Wright was, but is better in coverage, is that not the better route for you than paying $16 million for a guy like that? And also, you got to keep in mind, the Bears have to make a decision on Kevin Byard, Jaquan Brisker. They have to fill out that. They have no safeties under contract, basically. 4 safeties that are all free agents next year, right? So they have that to question as well. I just think the circumstances, as well as some of the limitations by Nahshon Wright, leave them in a position where I don't think Nahshon Wright's going to come back. I just don't think he is. Now, if he does come back, great. And who's to say that he can't work on the coverage? Who's to say that the Chicago Bears being more healthy? Kyler Gordon, never really healthy last year. Jalen Johnson, never 100% healthy last year either, right? Terrell Smith didn't play at all. Tyreek Stevenson was Tyreek Stevenson, right? And with an improved pass rush, who's to say that Nahshon Wright can't be better in coverage? So maybe there is an allure there or something that could lead the Bears to wanting to bring him back. I just think the safe bet is right now that he's probably not going to be back in the Bears uniform. And I think that it's the money. He deserves to get paid, and he's going to get paid, go out somewhere, get paid, and hopefully he performs. I wish him all the best in the world, whether that's with Chicago or not. This isn't a situation in which, I have any ill will or any ill intention towards a player. I just think that with the Bears and the salary situation limitations that they're already under, the fact that we do not have cap space at all, we have to create cap space just if we want to revamp the offensive line, the defensive line, whether it be through trades or restructuring contracts. I just don't know if $50 million potentially to Nahshon Wright is going to be the best use of the restructuring and all the creativeness that we have to do with our financial situation right now. I don't know if that's the best route for the Chicago Bears. And that's really what it comes down to, that he could just be a casualty of a cap situation. And that's the reality of it. I mean, sometimes you got to make those tough decisions, and that's the job of the front office, to make those tough decisions. So that's where I see it shaking out at. I don't see Nahshon Wright coming back, especially not at that evaluation. And he's not in a place to give a hometown discount for the Chicago Bears. For a player that has had very inconsistencies over his NFL career, you may want to go. If a team comes knocking for Nahshon Wright and offers him long-term stability, he'd be crazy to turn that down. And I'd say that about any player. If uncertainty's there, if you have that and the Bears are offering more a 1 or a 2 year deal, if you can get 3 or 4 years, and even if it's only $14 million somewhere else, the Chicago Bears the Nahshon Wright is probably going to have to take that and figure out what the next steps are for his career. At 27 years old, that's right. He spent 3 years in Dallas before coming here to Chicago. We'll see what happens with Nahshon Wright. But let me know what you guys think down below in regards to Nahshon Wright, especially with that projection by Spotrac. Do you think that that Nahshon Wright returns to the Bears? Do you think that may be just too high of an asking price for the Chicago Bears to match when we got to do so much work on that defensive line? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. With that said, let's get into the next topic, where we got to talk about some of these defensive players coming in this draft, because there's been some that I look at and I think do wonders for the Bears. Now, one of the ones that I want to talk about first, and the player that stood out at the Senior Bowl. Now, we know the Bears have done a lot of recruiting at the Senior Bowl, but a guy that stood out was Pittsburgh linebacker Kyle Lewis. This is a guy. He makes big plays over the course of his collegiate career. He's absolutely on the radar. I do think this is a guy that can be drafted later, probably in rounds 3. And with TJ Edwards, may not be healthy at the start of the season, Tremaine Edmonds may be on his way out. We don't know exactly, because the Bears having to revamp that defensive line. a guy like Kyle Lewis could come in and almost immediately make a starting impact for the Chicago Bears. And he has a versatile skill set that fits with the way that Dennis Allen likes to scheme, and that's what I like. Now, he's 6 foot, depending on where you look at it, 224 pounds. He ran a 4.640 as well. We'll see what he does in the actual draft combine. This guy was a 3-star prospect as well. When you look at what he did over his collegiate career, 198 tackles, 10 sacks, 6 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles as well. Kyle Lewis is a player that he just feels like a Chicago Bears linebacker. And I know that's not necessarily the best way to describe it, right? But there's just something about it. On top of that, he's had 3 passes deflected each of the last 2 years in college for 6 totals passes deflected in his career. So 6 passes deflected, 6 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles that he's had in that, 1 touchdown also. This is a guy that I think has the big playmaking ability that you're looking for in a linebacker, especially in what he brings. Speed. He has the sideline-to-sideline speed that you want from a linebacker. The instincts that he has in coverage, can play in coverage, which is an important part in Dennis Allen's system as well. He can play in coverage, right? And he understands how to read routes and predict routes pretty damn well, right? When he gets it caught in space, he's pretty in there. He can flip coverage also in times, and he's improved as a tackler every single season of his collegiate career. And the thing that I like about him is that he's productive with blitzes. Again, the sacks that he's had, the 10 sacks over 3 years in college, I think does show that a guy that you can use in your pass rush as well. Now, you still need to improve, of course, that defensive line, but the versatility between pass rushing and coverage is something that I think Kyle Lewis has in droves for the Chicago Bears. Now, some of the negatives about him, he is a smaller framed linebacker. And that's just a legitimacy there. And you may worry about that a little bit as far as durability in the NFL with the injuries we already face. That may be a big question there that has to be answered there, right? And sometimes he does get pushed off his spot by linemen if they have that good hand technique. So it's something that you can work out. I think that we have a really good development system here. There you go on that one. And one of the things also is that sometimes he allows too many yards after the first contact. But he's been compared to NFL comparisons to Terrell Bernard. So I think it's a guy that you look at, Terrell Bernard as well. You know, he came out of Baylor. He was undersized as well. He's a consistent starter now for the Buffalo Bills, and he is able to overcome his lack of size with speed and IQ. And I think that's where Kyle Lewis can really thrive at as well. In the right scheme, with the right coaches, utilized the right way, I think Kyle Lewis can help the Chicago Bears team in droves. He's projected to go right now in the 3rd round, and I think that's really great. I mean, he doesn't have the size to be drafted in the 1st round, and that's going to be something that pushes him further down. But I tell you what, the Bears in round 3, they take a swing on him, and I think that he's a guy that can definitely help this team. And I would not be surprised if a team takes a swing on him early in round 2 as well, depending on how that draft combine goes for him. I could definitely see that happening. But Kyle Lewis, keep his name on your board in the 3rd round. But many people are going to say, but Haize, we clearly need work on that defensive line. What you got for us there? I think with the 1st round pick, depending on how the draft combine shakes out, I'm looking at Georgia defensive tackle Christen Miller. Listen, Grady Jarrett was not the hit that we thought that he was going to be. Javon Dexter has been questionable at best. He's shown some flashes, but they've been very inconsistent flashes. What I like about Christen Miller here is the fact that he's a very good run defender. He has the quickness, he has the technical ability. He also is a force in the passing game. Doesn't get a lot of sacks, right? But I think what you look at and how he can help with the run defense, with the Bears defense needs a lot of help in the run, but he also can help in the pass. He has 4 sacks over his collegiate career, right? 1.5 each of the last 2 seasons, 64 total tackles, 31 of those being solo, 1 pass deflected as well. This is a kid that's 6'4", 305 pounds, not a tweener. That's a lot of things what people want to avoid are tweeners. I saw you guys. I hear you. I received that. This guy is a guy that I think can come in and start right away for the Chicago Bears. Big Billings is probably gone. Grady Jarrett, we'll see what happens with him in year 2. Even if Christen Miller comes off the bench in year 1, I think that Christen Miller is a guy that if you draft him in round 1, which he is projected to go in the 1st round, he's there for the Chicago Bears at pick 25. You take him, you develop him. I think he can be a hell of a player for the Chicago Bears. And you can start, well, free agency comes before the draft, right? But he can go a long way in trying to revamp that defensive line and the poor run defense that we had here, as well as providing run support as well. You got to get those edges together. If you have to get those edges together, I think Christen Miller can feast at that defensive tackle position. I love his body. I love his make. Oh, that's a pause. I love the physical style that he plays with. I love his physical makeup as well. I just like how he just seems to be a tough son of a bitch on that defensive line, and you just need tough motherfuckers on that defensive line to get it to go. We know that the Bears have to revamp the defense. With our cap situation, we may not be able to do it with as many veterans. I would prefer a veteran edge, and then I'm okay with you filling out the draft, the internal defensive line with younger players. If you have those edges set, you get those veteran edges, I'm fine with younger guys in the interior of that defensive line. And so I think that that's a route that the Chicago Bears should definitely go with it. We'll see if they do. But as always, you guys can let me know how you feel on that down below. That's going to do it for today's episode of Chicago Bears Central, man. We got a lot of things coming up. This offseason is not about hype. It's about precision. The Bears need to be very, very precise in what they do. They need to have a direction. They have a quarterback. They're building a culture. They have their head coach. They got their DC. Now it's about making the right decisions. Who replaces Declan Doyle? We'll see. Do you pay Nahshon Wright? And do you take a big swing on a player in the draft? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel also. You can follow us at Chi Bear Central on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. ChicagoBearCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.